press and play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment. My name is Wood. Please consider becoming a subscriber to the channel if you like the way that any of the information is being broken down, discussed, previewed, recapped, analyzed, opined, whatever. Do me a favor and hit that like button. You can make a donation to the channel, the Cash App, $ a tribe called Reg, R-E-G, or you can simply just share, the video, share the link to the video, to your circle. You got people that like sports and entertainment, and as well as boxing. I wanted to come on and talk about one of the big stories in boxing for this weekend, this upcoming weekend, is Philadelphia's Jaron boots Ennis, and it kind of just caught my attention that he was actually fighting for his first world title this weekend against Chris Van Heerden of South Africa, I believe. And it's a little ironic because another Philadelphia kid that I talked to a year and a half or so ago, in Stephen Fulton, I was going to say Curry, but Cool Boy Steph, he actually fought for the same title for the same organization or the same sanctioning body when I talked to him in Virginia on the undercard of Jared Hurd and J-Rock. And the title that he won that night was the IBO belt, the International Boxing Organization. I know you're like, what the hell is that? Or, we don't need another ABC, we don't need another sanctioning body. I get it. But the fact remains is that Saturday night, the winner of Jaron Ennis and Chris Van Heerden, they will take home that IBO welterweight belt. And it was a little interesting because when I saw something mentioned about it, the last person that had the belt was Sebastian Formella out of Germany. Sebastian Formella fought, he came over here and fought. His introduction to U.S. fight fans was a few months ago back against Sean Porter when they fought on Fox, I believe. And, Sean Porter took him apart, beat him up for 10 rounds, I believe. I think it was only a 10-rounder. But, of course, they didn't make a big deal going into it. I guess me, kind of as a boxing nerd a little bit, I write about boxing. I was kind of seeing how they would even speak on the IBO belt, because that's kind of probably looked at as being beneath Sean Porter a little bit. With him being a two-time an IBF and WBC welterweight champion, he probably, wasn't anxious to pick up or take home an IBO belt. And they didn't even fight 12 rounds. I'm pretty sure that was a 10-round fight. But the belt, like I said, Sean Porter did not accept the belt, didn't pay the sanctioning fee, did not become the IBO champion. Really quickly, I don't know if you aren't familiar with the IBO, I think it's the one organization that is trying to let some kind of computer algorithm or something kind of dictates its ranking, and it's trying to gain traction. And that makes it unique, is that it has this computer component, putting together the rankings. But of course, there's already 4 out there with all kinds of history attached to most of them, or all of them. And so nobody wants to really accept, this 5th one, despite the fact that it might be somewhat, it might be eliminating, bias and man-made errors and whatnot. So, but anyway, I joked with Cool Boy Steph back in, it was at, I think, Eagle Pass or Eagle Bank Arena on the George Mason campus was where that fight took place. But I joked with him about the IBO belt and what it meant to him and so on and so forth. And he laughed at it and he looked at it as, well, now that I have the IBO belt, I'm gonna make everybody want the IBO belt. And he fought for the super bantamweight IBO belt. Had a good fight that night. Anyway, you saw from there the next time, well, not the next time because he fought Arnold Kagai. After the Kagai fight, Stephen Fulton was going to fight Angelo Leo for the vacant WBO title back in September, early September. But he ended up being tested positive for COVID. He was pulled off of that show. And Angelo Leo went on to face the Williams kid, Tremaine Williams, I think. And Leo became a world title holder, beating Tremaine Williams, I think was his name. So here it is now, another Philadelphian, has a shot to win this IBO title. And, he's probably a heavy favorite. But the interesting thing was both of these guys actually appeared on Sirius XM today. When I was out for my lunch break, both guys, I ended up catching a part of the Ak and Barak show where these guys were, they do a virtual stare down or a virtual face off. And, they both were on there just answering questions about the fight, sizing each other up, whatever they were willing to divulge about their game plans and so on and so forth. And Chris Van Heerden just really hijacked the whole segment because he just got on some real humanity stuff and kind of threw Boots for a little bit of a loop. But it was hilarious. I mean, it was kind of heartfelt, but then it got back to boxing. And then Jaron, Ennis's father, I think his name is Bozy, it was B-O-Z-Y. His father got involved, and they all exchanged like some pleasantries and whatnot. But then it was, before they got off, it was like, well, you're a nice guy and everything, but Saturday night, we got to do you how we got to do you. We got to take care of business. But it was very, it was all on the up and up for both parties in that regard. Chris Van Heerden was like, I'm a professional fighter. That's my job, But the way that he hijacked the interview was like on the second question to him, he told Van Heerden, I forget what he was even talking about. Oh, and this is a part of boxing, that we get online and we argue and tear down some of these fighters, diminish a lot of these guys, their struggles, their sacrifices, their commitment, the reality of the situation. We ignore the business. We ignore the fact that it's a tough business. We disregard the fact that everybody doesn't have their business in order properly. Like a guy that's getting ready to fight in an hour and a half on the Twitch app. But, we don't really, we just sit, a lot of us just sit and bang on the table and say what we want and who ain't this and who ain't that. But, a lot of these guys, they have it's a lot of camaraderie among the guys. It's a lot of respect. It's often the understanding, and it was even the understanding in Fury and Wilder. Like, we need each other to take this next step forward, or it's a reason going into this fight to have some kind of mutual before and after, going into the fight and coming out of the fight. It's a reason to have and show a mutual respect to the other man. And Van Heerden was like, he said he was grateful. He had a lot of gratitude for the fact that this opportunity became available to him, because originally Boots was supposed to face Thomas who I don't know. I'm assuming it was COVID or maybe it was some other kind of injury. But anyway, the Normay is no longer on the bill, and now it's Chris Van Heerden, And it's been a challenge to find reputable or credible opponents for Jaron Ennis. But he was like, he said he had to take this fight. That was kind of what was so honorable about the exchange between the two fighters. Chris Van Heerden was like, I had to take this fight. He said, I know everybody thinks this kid is going everywhere. He's going places. He's the talk of the division, and he's a hell of a fighter. He said, but, I'm still out here pursuing my dream. And he said that I had to tell my father. He said his father was murdered 2 years ago. And he said, I had to take this fight regardless of who the opponent was, because he said he vowed to his father that one day he would be a world champion. So even though this IBO title that nobody cares about and is struggling to gain traction, Van Heerden was like, I gotta go and fight this kid that nobody really wants to fight, but that's the only way for me to make, to meet this, to honor, this promise, what I vowed to my deceased father. I gotta go do it. And like I said, man, I thought that was extremely honorable. It's a hell of a storyline to the fight. The respect, shown between both men. So at this point, the young boy, Jaron Ennis, is all thrown off. Like, how can I talk trash to this cat? And he just told me about his father being murdered. And, he was kind of, afterwards, Van Heerden what added insult to injury was the fact that he was over here in the States and hadn't seen his father, for 2 years or something, or maybe even longer than that. But he hadn't really seen his father on a regular basis because he was over here trying to, chase this dream of being a world champion. And he didn't get it completed before his father, was murdered and whatnot. So I believe it was Ak of the Ak and Barack show, he asked Jaron, like, well, damn, bro, like, what can you say to a man who just said what he said? And Jaron was like, you know what? I feel sorry for him, and I'm sorry for his loss and what happened to his family, and I can imagine that's tough as hell and whatnot. But he was like, he said, so we got to do what we got to do though. We signed up for this, and that's a part of this thing. And he was like, so for the fight, I'm gonna do what I gotta do because I gotta move forward and advance my career, and that means getting past him. And he was like, I'm trying to extend my knockout streak to 16 and the 16 straight fights. And he was like, it is what it is. It doesn't change anything. And then Chris Van Heerden just came back and was like, nah, it's not supposed to. He was like, we're fighters. That's our profession. This is how we approach things, and we got to go out here. We both have to do our jobs. And he was just like, obviously the best man will win. And he just said he was honored. He said even if he was to get beat, even if he was to be defeated, he was like, it's still going to be a part of his story, of the story of his career, that, maybe he was at the outset of one of the great fighters to ever become a champion at in one of the best divisions, in boxing. He said, that'll be a part of my story, whether I'm triumphant or whether I get defeated. He was like, it's all the same. So like I said, man, we get out here, and some people need to watch. I mean, some people watch the sport and need to hear guys be disrespectful, cussing each other out, and unruly and savage, and take this thing personal, and a whole bunch of animus and all of that type of stuff. And oftentimes, you see a lot of these guys you see a lot of these bouts, and a lot of these guys don't really have any real dislike or disdain towards the other guy. It's a check. You know what I mean? It's an opportunity. It's the next check. But some of us, we get out here, like I said, to get out here and talk boxing in public and talk boxing with others, it's way more charged up, on social media and online than it is between the combatants. It's kind of crazy to me. But yeah, it was just decent to hear some guys, be firm, have a little fun. I think they exchanged a couple of jokes, and then it wasn't even like, I was mentioning before that Sugar Ray Leonard was on something that I watched one time and was talking about how he tried to play mind games with Hagler leading up to that fight. And he said it worked. On fight night, Hagler played right into his hands based on the seeds that he planted in his mind as they were going through the press conferences. But it really wasn't a matter of Van Heerden trying to play any mind games or anything. I didn't get a sense of that. He's a guy that's still obviously pretty, shaken up, understandably, at the fact of losing his father, and like I said, not being by his side, or not having spent a lot of quality time with him before his life was taken. And this guy is out here trying to still, and man, after you lose 1 or 2 fights, you get into 3 and 4 defeats, and it's against the same level, and it's very apparent that you might have hit the ceiling. In all likelihood, you have to have a perfect night. If you're the opponent, you're gonna have to have a perfect night just to get a reasonable or a fair decision. You gotta have a perfect night. And I think Van Heerden, I believe, is 32 years old. Ennis is like, I don't know, he's under 25, I want to say. Maybe he's 23. So, this is, and that's what another thing, right now we're hearing a lot of talk about Edgar Berlanga, and people want him to step up, and, we're throwing out different names and whatnot about who. Gotcha. Just got a message. We're talking.
Would you like to check it now?
Oh, we're talking about who should fight Berlanga, who Berlanga should fight, who Top Rank should put him in there with. But some of these guys that you want, they're not going in there and fighting him for what Top Rank is probably offering. Especially if he's not headlining, if he's not at a point where they can build the fight around him, and all the money is right, and they pay for everything and whatnot, you might not be able to get a David Lemieux. You might not be able to get a Spike Sullivan. You might not be able to get an Anthony Sims Jr. So, like I said, we get out here and yell and complain about stuff, but we don't always know all of the critical details that go into we ain't even talking about building somebody's career over a series of fights. A lot of us don't even know what it takes to make one fight, to make one particular fight, and to accomplish, that phase of building that fighter. It's a lot of skill and wisdom in doing that. And so I'm not saying that, they don't need to figure out a way to get him into that type of situation. But, some of these last couple of guys, they were playing. I mean, they expected them to be able to go some rounds. I mean, it didn't go in there that these guys were certain certain stoppages in the first round. That's just how it ended up playing out. Sierra did do a couple of things before he got in trouble, but I think he gave a little too much ground. know, Berlanga is probably a kid that you probably gonna have to go into the fire, walk into the fire, maybe tie him up a little bit, rough him up a little bit. You probably gonna have to go forward, you know, to walk forward and walk to him versus being mid-range to outside and allowing him to just wind up and throw them wide hooks and whatnot. That's somebody sooner or later is going to be tough enough and wise enough to stand up to, you know, what Berlanga likes to do and give him more to look at than just a target that's sitting outside, allowing him to fight comfortably and do what he wants to do, seeing what he wants to see. But same thing with the you know, the hell is that? But the same thing with you know, with the kid with Jaron Ennis, you know, it's some dudes, you know, a Jamal James is somebody I'd like to see him face, but Jamal James is closer to a title. He's closer to you know, to title contention than needing to prove himself at that, you know, to be worthy of that. Like, he's already proven that he deserves to be on that level. So again, it comes down, well, if nothing is happening, well, how much, what's the pay for it? Then I consider that risk. But everybody's just not looking to fight everybody just because, you know. And I think, you know, a lot of that is, you know, a manager and a promoter, you know, the part of managing and steering a fighter is to get them to a world title fight and to get them to be, you know, to get them in a position to become a world champion. Earn some good money. Another thing that I was going to talk on, I'm almost to the crib now, but I'm not one of the guys that's really down on all of the titles. I know a couple of months ago, I don't know if I spoke on this before or not, but I know Floyd was, you know, came out and said it's too many champions, it's too many belts. You know, different podcasts, I've heard that before. I'm not all against that. I know I've talked about this before, but it is an opportunity for fighters to earn more money based on some of these secondary and junior, regional, some of these different belts. It's more money for the fighter, and I'm always, you know, pro fighter. So that's one thing. I do think that some titles shouldn't be, as you go up certain levels, and especially once you get to TV, you know, like them NABF belts and some of that different stuff, you know, once you get to a certain level, you probably don't need to trot those out there and whatnot. But you know, some of these other titles, I just think as long as we're being, as long as the promoters and the network, the production of the show, as long as they're being honest about what that other belt or what the belt that the fighter is holding, what it represents, I don't see that being a complete, you know, a negative. It's a way to market the fights. It's a visual aid to allow, you know, it could be a newcomer that night watching a program, but it's a visual aid to help the viewer understand, you know, this person might be going somewhere, or you know, this is a person to watch for, or this person's career is elevating. I look at it like that. Now, I know a lot of the belts are very similar, from the gold, the diamond, the interim, the intercontinental, a lot of them do have very similar, you know, dimensions and whatnot, I guess, and features. So maybe they could do something along those lines, but I'm not really completely against it, but at the same time, I mean, I pretty much have a good understanding of what all the belts mean. So I guess it's not an issue for me. But and I can see how trying to explain all of it to someone else, it could be a little confusing and whatnot. But again, people don't have, I don't know, you don't have to understand 100% about everything that you tune into. And again, I said this before, a lot of other sports have the equivalent of these different titles. They just don't make, it's just not, when the Super Bowl starts, you don't see all 53 of the players on the field with the conference championship rings on their hands, or a conference championship belt around their waist. But when those teams do make it to the Super Bowl, they do get announced as the National Football Conference champions and the American Football Conference champions. They do get announced like that. So a lot of these other sports do have secondary titles that get talked about. So like I said, I'm not all that much against all of the different titles. And in this particular situation right here, I think I heard Boots talk about what this title shot means to him, even though it's not the the WBC, the BA, the IBF, and the BO. But he said, hey, it's a step in the right direction. It's affirmation, it's validation. So I don't know. Now, they probably don't even bother to show that. They probably don't even bother to show the IBO belt on the telecast, maybe. But it is up for grabs. And the one thing about it, as an organization, the most meaningful person with the IBO belt to even try to begin to give it a little bit of legitimacy is Anthony Joshua. Every once in a while he mentions, I think one of the interviews or during the press conferences last week, he mentioned that he had 4 titles. And obviously with Tyson Fury having the WBC title, he was referencing his IBO title. And then he quickly corrected himself and said 3 titles, and left that one off. But, he's one of the major figures out there that has an IBO title and actually gives it a little bit of shine every once in a while for whatever that's worth. But I think it's decent for the kid, man. And like I said, if you go back and check out the interview, here's Chris Van Heerden. That's part of what factored into him going ahead and accepting this fight and giving us being a credible opponent for a guy that's going to continue to struggle, to find a decent opponent and whatnot. So it's hard to sit here and tell these guys that it doesn't mean something. And like I said, the other Philly native who won won a belt from this same organization was Cool Boy Steph. From that IBO title, he was able to go ahead and fight for the he was scheduled to fight for the WBO title. And now I believe him and Angelo Leo are scheduled once again, but it's not going to happen in 2020, probably early in 2021. So other than that, man, I done made it to the crib. Also on that card, up in the main event, they're still keeping that as a vacant bantamweight title fight between Emmanuel Rodriguez and Raymart Gaballo, I think is his name. And then also Gary Antonio Russell will be taking on Juan Carlos Payano. That's pretty much a solid step up for him. And it's kind of interesting because Payano actually fought, I believe, didn't he fight Daniel Roman on the doubleheader pay-per-view for the Charlos. So, that would give him a pretty good edge on being sharper. I don't think Gary Antonio Russell has fought anybody this year. He might have got in some action before the COVID situation, but he definitely hasn't fought since that. So we'll see how that turns out. I thought Payano did pretty good in that fight too, and might have even gotten robbed against Roman, who had a very slow, just an awkward night altogether. But that's that, man. Let me get on off of here. Enjoy the fights. Enjoy all the action. Like I said, in about an hour and 20 minutes, if you still got time to go get that Twitch app and get familiar with that, to find the Ring City USA Twitch channel and watch this heavyweight fight on there with Stephen Shaw and Pinchuk. And I want to say Keyshawn Davis's brother, Kelvin Davis, might be on that part of it. Keyshawn Davis is one of the Olympic hopefuls, on the Olympic team and whatnot. One of the guys who's predicted to do pretty well in the tournament and whatnot, and possibly medal. He's also a guy that's very hot right now in terms of fielding offers from promoters for him to turn pro. But it looks like he's gonna hang around and take a shot at fighting in the Olympics in the event that they happen. I think that might be like July or something, next year. They pushed it back. So his brother is on there. I think there's another fight that's on the Twitch portion of the show, and then at 9 p.m. Eastern time it moves over to NBC Sports Network with Cleveland's own Charles Conwell in the main event against Madiar Ashkia. So we do have some boxing tonight. That's it. Let me get on off here. Should be a solid women's bout on there too. No disrespect to the ladies with Helena Mrjinovic and Aranda Paola Torres on there in the co-main event on NBC Sports Network. Again, bite down boxing. Don't let them count you out. Pay me no mind. Sports and entertainment. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.